appreciate you coming on and joining me here on the podcast and sharing a little bit of your journey and your expertise.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be on. I'm just a little sick. I just wanted to preface that. That's why I sound a little nasally.
That's me like half of my podcast, so don't worry.
I was like, I want to get on. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it sounding like this. I don't even care.
No, don't worry. I don't know why, but I literally get allergies. I do podcasts like 1 or 2 days a week, and it just seems like always I get my allergies on that day. So no
Yeah.
worries. I'm happy it's not me this time. But anyway, like I said, thanks for coming on, joining me here in the weight room. It's good to have you on. I'll have you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, your background, what you do, and then we'll roll into it from there.
Yeah. So my name is Rachael Sciullo. I'm an assistant strength and conditioning coach at Army West Point. I've been here for about a month. I work with women's rugby, men's swim, and cheer. And sometimes I assist with women's basketball, which is fun. So much lighter schedule than I had when I was a grad assistant. Going from working with 5 teams and assisting with football to that is much better. But yeah, so I am originally from Fishkill, New York. So right across the river from West Point. Have you ever been to West Point before?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's about an hour north of New York City. So that's where I'm from. And then I did my undergrad at Mercy College. While I was getting my undergrad, I interned at Army. So I was going to school and was being an intern at the same time. That was a grind. I would wake up at like 5 a.m, drive to Army an hour away, spend my morning there, drive an hour to school, spend a few hours there, go to class, drive an hour back to Army, spend the rest of the afternoon there, and then drive an hour home, and then do it all again the next day.
Wow. That's dedication.
Yeah. So that's just how bad I wanted to be there. And I've heard stories of people doing worse, so it's fine. So yeah, I was doing that as I was a senior, and then that was the year 2020, and then COVID hit, and so the cadets left for spring break, and then just never came back. So it's pretty funny how I'm back here now, and COVID is still a thing. But then that summer coming up, I interned at Yale, and that was a virtual internship, which people hear virtual internships, they don't think much about it, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Was 12 hours a day sitting in front of a computer, learned a ton. And then I got a GA at Sacred Heart and was there for a year. And now I'm here.
A lot of, like I said, kind of dedication that goes with that. A lot of transportation and sitting in front of a computer. How does that work though? How does a virtual thing like that work?
A lot of projects. So we would have to wake up at 5 a.m. and send our goals into a group chat every morning. And the coaches would scroll through. There were about 21 interns that started out. And then we ended with about 15, I want to say. So yeah, we'd wake up early in the morning, send our goals to a group chat, our daily goals. Then we would have a meeting at like 7 a.m. And this was all through Zoom. So I would say Yale owes me a new computer because Zoom absolutely fried my computer, being on it for like 8 hours a day. And yeah, we would just have lectures. There were a lot of guest speakers that came on, and then just projects that would take the entire day.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, that's pretty hefty right there. I know, the students doing back in 2020 more doing that virtual kind of schooling, but just to have it to that level of like, when you're a kid, you kind of, I think, just like zone out more and get to like kind of just, take a little breather every now and again. But that sounds like it was pretty intense. And to do that just every single day on a computer, I can't imagine, that's one thing whenever I took like online classes in college, it was nothing, really nothing like they are now with what they put into it. For me, it was more like, okay, here's your assignments. You don't have to see the professor if you don't want to. And
Yeah.
it seems like it just come such a long way in just that 1 year of how kind of online or virtual classes go.
Yeah. I finished my senior year of college all online, and it was tough having 3 hour long classes all online. So I don't know how young kids do it now. And yeah, like I said, Yale owes me a new computer because it was exhausting spending all day in front of a computer. So knowing that young kids have to do that, still maybe even it's tough.
Yeah. So getting into strength and conditioning, like how did you get into that field? Where did the interest come from that?
So I was majoring in exercise science, and I was a personal trainer all through undergrad. Um, and I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. I was doing like group classes, private training, and all that. And then I started working out at a private performance facility in my hometown, and I realized there that that was the population that I wanted to work with, not necessarily the general population. So I just absolutely loved, training with those athletes. They ranged from like elementary school to all the way to college. So I was working out alongside these athletes, and then I ended up working there for a little bit. Learned a ton there, but that kind of really steered me into knowing what population I wanted to work with. And then the way that Mercy works is you have to do 9 total credits of an internship. So I had to do 2 different internships for being able to graduate. So when it came time to do that internship, I just knew I wanted to go the collegiate route. And then Army was, close enough to make it work. So I applied and ended up getting the internship, and it all went from there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Strength conditioning is definitely, it's something that I have a little bit of experience in as an intern. And it really kind of changed the way I looked at things. Like right out of college, I felt like I had a decent amount of information and knowledge, but it was mostly like, book knowledge and not too much practical
Yeah.
stuff. If I had like one complaint about my schooling, it was we only had like one class to where we kind of really went over, I really one class where we stood up. It's as weird as that sounds, like exercise science, but we only had that one class, that one semester to where it was like, okay, this is kind of how you do these things. And then to me, it's like, that's such a basic yet important level thing. Like, why is this kind of at the end? And why is this like only one aspect to the exercise science degree? Did you kind of have that experience at all? How was your experience with exercise science?
Yeah, it was not geared towards strength conditioning at all. It was very much clinical. So when I was going into my internship, I sort of felt like I knew nothing, which is great, but also not at the same time, because then I'm going in and I'm a sponge to everything that I'm learning while I'm in the weight room. But at the same time, I just didn't feel prepared going into my internships. Obviously, I definitely could have done a lot more, reading and learning on my own to be prepared for that. But I think that's something that schools are trying to change, hopefully, is just realizing that there's 2 sides to the exercise science degree. It should be clinical, and then it should also be strength and conditioning,
Yeah.
and not gear it all towards, learning about diseases and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it kind of is a reflection of our society in some level. Like we're learning more about how to teach people how to kind of exercise and do
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Like once they have a heart attack or have something, if once they're pulmonary patients already, but like if we would teach these things beforehand, and I feel like that, like I said, it's a reflection of kind of the way that we are more reactive instead of what's the word I'm looking for here? Proactive.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree.
So I think it's interesting. Like you talked about Yale and you talk about West Point, and those two are definitely like pretty big. Very. I feel like reputable names to people, and to have those two experiences, I'm sure it's very, at least for me, like, so I'm from Kentucky. We have, some decent schools around here, but nothing like you do up in the Northeast where you have all those, prestigious schools like that.
Hmm.
So to me, it seems like it would be, to have those two opportunities, it would definitely be something that you would feel like, okay, I have, something that sets me apart. Does it feel like that, or does it feel like just you're still kind of like amongst the crowd in a way?
I I definitely do feel like that, because they were so different. So um, actually physically being in the weight room is one thing, but then a virtual internship, like you have nothing to do but go over, everything textbook definition wise. So that's really where I kind of polished off my skills as far as like Excel and learning how to program and the Prilipin chart and all that stuff. So um, although they were two very different experiences, I would say they definitely prepared me to go into my grad assistantship, because you can't learn everything out of one internship. And if you did, then that would be pretty much all that was required to get the job. So um, I was very thankful and definitely a little hesitant at first to spend all of my time in front of a computer over the summer. But I'm very glad that I did both experiences, because I would not have been prepared to go be a grad assistant without either one.
Just the way that people have different ideas in this field is so interesting to me. How it's like, okay, it's the human body. How can you have different opinions on it? But
Yeah.
if you look at it from such like an outside perspective, it's like, okay, there should only be like a way to do this. But then you really kind of get into it, and it's like, oh wow, there's so many different theories and ideas, and this person thinks that this is the best way to do it, and the other person thinks that it's a terrible way to do it, and you shouldn't do deadlifts, or you shouldn't do
Yep.
cleans, and like, okay, like what is the way to do it? I think that's the most confusing part when you get out of school, is like you read from a book and you have all these right answers on a test, and then you get into the real world and it's like, oh, there's like 50 million different right answers.
Exactly. That's I think what can be kind of tough about being a young coach is you can get overwhelmed with how many options there are. But one thing that I was always told at Yale is it's kind of good in a way that there's so many options, because the chance of you picking the right one are pretty high. So um, and it was just good to see kind of, they do things differently at Yale than they do at Army. And it was also great in the sense of that both places, the coaches just, they wanted to see you succeed. And I felt very valued as an intern at both places. And even after I left Army, all the coaches, they really pushed me to keep going and keep learning, and kept in contact with me. And same with me. I always made sure I kept those relationships tight. And yeah, just very thankful for both experiences.
Yeah, and I think Army's it's just has this aura around it, this like reputation. What was it like before you got there, and your ideas versus how it kind of really was?
I I don't think anybody really realizes what Army is like unless you actually step in there and you're really there. They don't realize kind of how much of a rigorous schedule those kids have. They have an Ivy League education with responsibilities that come along with being in the military, and then you add athletics onto that on top of that, and it's just like chaos. So um, I really didn't realize, what they go through on a day-to-day basis, and it's much different than at a non-service academy university, because you face a lot more challenges in terms of like them maybe not going to bed every night until 1 a.m. because they're up doing homework, and then have to be up at 6 a.m. because they have morning formation, or maybe we get lifted in early that day, just to get out of the way, things like that. So you don't really know how tough those kids are and what they need to go through unless you're actually there.
And it seems like that would definitely lead to some recovery issues. It's definitely when you're in the weight room, it's an important aspect to it without a doubt, but like the recovery aspect, the other 23 hours or whatever it is of the day that you have to focus on, okay, like I just did a heavy squat and then I got to wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever it is. Like, how can I possibly recover? How can I possibly like do what I need or my body do what it needs to do in 5 hours? How can, and do you see that being addressed in the weight room?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that's kind of always on our mind is that these kids don't get enough sleep as it is because again they have an Ivy League education along with all these other responsibilities. So they'll be up late every night doing homework and then up early in the morning to either have again morning formation, which is around 7 a.m. So they have to wake up at 6 ish. Or they have lift or they have practice, something like that. So there's always kind of something getting in the way of them getting enough sleep. And then again, you just mix in, they have insane class schedules. So they'll go to class from say 8 to 4 p.m. every day. So again, there's never a time for a nap or anything. And then they don't have a typical dining hall. So they have times where they can go in and eat. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So then obviously nutrition is always a factor. So one great thing about our weight rooms is we have a lot of resources there. So we always have protein bars and like meals to go. We have protein shakes, all that. So the kids, if they're coming from practice or they just lifted, then they can grab what they need to bring it back to their rooms. But again, getting them to eat enough, getting them to sleep enough, that's always a problem that we're facing.
Yeah, and it seems like with the information out on like how important recovery is, it seems like over the next, coming years, it would be, amplified and amplified to almost, and I guess kind of with this new rule about, players being able to, get paid for certain things, like it's almost like we're stretching athletes to less of the student and more of just the athlete. And in a way, definitely, I think that's harmful, probably in a lot of ways. But in some ways, I think, to some level of athlete, that would be, more beneficial to just have this avenue where they can fully take care of their mind, fully take care of their body, and take advantage of that athletic potential that they think is, their next step. And like I said, I think you have to obviously still throw in like the importance of the student side, because for 99% of people that's the future, that's their route. But
Yeah.
it is like, what do we do for, or do we do anything for these super high level athletes?
Yeah, it's funny because since getting here, it's almost made me a little bit softer because I want to be, that cushion for these athletes to fall back on is, they go through things that I can't wrap my head around sometimes. Like they all spend their summers going to these schools, so like air assault school or airborne school or just military training for the entire summer, and then they automatically come back to West Point and then go straight into school, go straight into their sport. So they might have like a week off for that entire span of time. And so again, just checking in with them daily, it's just made me softer in a way where I'm like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating enough? Are you and really just checking on in on their mental health a lot because again, they at the end of the day, they are, young kids and it can be very overwhelming the amount of things and responsibilities that they have to deal with. So the way that I handle these athletes as compared to Sacred Heart, I'd be a little tougher on them at Sacred Heart because they're not dealing with as much as they are here. But here I'm like, oh, what do you need from me? Just being that resource for them and letting them know I'm here for whatever they need. Again, to maximize their performance because they have all these other things that they're worrying about every day. And, it might be hard for them to remember to eat, or again, they have all this homework and they can't get to bed on time. And now I'm asking them to come in and lift at 6 a.m. So it can be hard, and asking so much from an athlete, day after day, I think it goes a long way with them, just showing them, I care about you and I care about, your recovery and how you're performing and how you're feeling it physically and mentally. And I think that helps them a lot.
Yeah, it seems like there would be the potential, at least for athletes in that environment, to just say, I can't keep this up. I can't, physically and mentally, but also I can see at the same time where you're in the environment of like, don't give up, don't quit.
Yeah.
So I can see where it'd be challenging because you have your own like health and you're thinking about it, but you're also thinking about kind of your reputation, and also you're probably pushing yourself because you're that kind of person at the same time. So I can see where, it would be just so challenging to have all that stress on you and all that pressure. And it's funny, I actually talked to somebody just a while back about that kind of like the mental side of athletics, and how it kind of transforms into just the mental side of everything.
Yeah, exactly. They're extremely competitive and they're extremely tough, and nobody to begin with wants to really express that they're struggling in anything, and especially these kids. Like they want to succeed, they strive for excellence, and that's just what it comes down to. So again, just being that resource for them and letting them know, like, I'm here for you. It's okay to tell me if you're struggling in anything, if you're struggling with eating enough, or even things like they take something called the ACFT, the Army Combat Fitness Test, and just letting them know, I'm here for you if you need help with that. Things like they deadlift in that, they do crazy things like that. So again, just letting them know, I'm here for you more than just you coming into the weight room.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and maybe something that most people would think like would be the other way around, like, oh, it's just another person to like push me, and not in a negative way per se, but like tell me to keep going and do all this stuff. Whereas like, from your perspective, it's cool to hear like, okay, these people have all those people around them doing that. How can I be a little bit in, a different environment for them?
Yeah.
And I think the athlete is just such an interesting idea. This person who puts so much time into their self, into, if it's a team sport, really back into the team and things like that. And like we're talking about at West Point, how it's, definitely, I would say, amplified to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
What are maybe some misconceptions though that people may have about like a quote unquote like typical West Point athlete?
I really think it just again comes down to not knowing like what they go through on a daily basis, and thinking, oh, they're just at a military academy, they just have to wear a uniform to class, when it's so much more than that. And you don't know the struggles that they go through on a day-to-day basis, unless you actually see it. So like this past or 2 weekends ago, they had something called SAMI. So it's a Saturday morning room inspection, and everything in the room has to be completely perfect. So these kids spend like hours cleaning their rooms, making sure there's not a single bit of dust in it. It was pretty cool. I got to be a guest inspector. So I was walking around, I saw some of my athletes' rooms, got to walk in there and watch their rooms get inspected. So it was a cool experience. But again, it's things like that where a typical athlete at another place doesn't have to worry about having their room inspected on a Saturday morning. They can just enjoy their Friday night and not have to do anything like that. So yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is just not really knowing what the other things that they have to juggle aside from athletics and their education.
Do you feel like it's, and not to like put negativity on it, but like, do you feel like it could be different? Like it could be beneficial to have some changes, or do you think that like, okay, all these things, while they are challenging, they're preparatory, they get you ready for something, they have a real benefit?
I definitely think it is the way that it is. And I think that's why West Point is such a special place, because it is so tough, and it takes a special kind of kid to be able to endure the things that they do while they're here for these 4 years, and the amount of sacrifices that they have to make. They don't have a normal college experience by any means. So, like, all 4 years they have to live on post. They can't, spend their junior and senior year living in an apartment with their friends. So I think it pays off. And again, if I think about the saying, if it were easy, everybody would do it. And it would bring West Point less meaning, I think, if they changed anything, because again, it takes a special kind of kid to be able to do what they do for as long as they do, and do it well. So, like, they aren't just here and kind of passing by, but they have to be here and be at 100% every day. So it's just a special kind of kid.
It seems like we could definitely benefit from a little bit more of the structure, or of the discipline, or whatever you want to call it, of that kind of thing. So,
and there's definitely a lot of kids that, they get here and it takes them a little while to kind of figure out how to get into the flow of, all the things that they have to handle. And then, some kids make mistakes, and they learn from them and then get better. Not everybody's perfect walking in the door here, but they end up figuring it out and getting through it. So yeah, it pays off in the end.
So the weight room itself, is it what you would you typically see in a college weight room, or is it, a lot more kind of like the military environment in the weight room?
The way that we make the weight room, I think all the coaches, and this I learned when I was an intern, their time in athletics is their time to get away from the military, and all of the way that they have to be when they're actually in school and actually there. So for me personally, like, I don't make it any bit military at all. That's their place to come and kind of like let loose and have fun. And I think that that's how all the coaches go. It's very much a normal college weight room. And I think you kind of have to be that way here to be successful, because, they get so much of that. You don't need any more of it in the weight room. So for me, I'm like, I want this to be a place where they enjoy coming, especially if it's at the end of a long day and they've had classes all day and have been up early. It's just another place that they're not feeling forced to go, and it's not just another thing they have to check off on their list, but somewhere they actually want to go.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really good approach to it, and it's almost kind of like the opposite of the other kind of situation where you come in,
Yeah,
off of maybe a day off or whatever, and it's like, okay, it's time to get back to some structure, and then there it's kind of like, okay, maybe you still want the structure, but you maybe loosen things up a little bit. That's pretty cool.
yeah. We definitely uphold our standards and have the weight room standards and all that. It's not free for all or anything, but it's, again, just a place for them to kind of like be themselves, be with their teammates, and have fun. And it's funny because I think back to how I was at Sacred Heart with those teams there, and I wouldn't say more strict, but again, it's like, you're here, you're getting down to business at Sacred Heart, but here it's like, okay, we're still going to get down to business, but we're going to have fun doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one aspect of strength conditioning, especially at the college and pro levels, that I think is very fascinating, that a lot of people don't get to experience, is the technology aspect, and
Yeah.
kind of go into some of that technology that you've been able to kind of see and utilize and be a part of.
So we're very fortunate here, because we have, I don't know the exact number, but we have a good amount of Tendo units. I'm pretty sure would be enough to go at every rack. So that right off the bat, I was really excited for coming into here, because that's something I'm going to utilize a lot in season with my teams. And then every team, once they come back from the summer, they all go through an initial screening. So we'll take, force deck data for every athlete, and then we'll put them through the NORD board, and then we'll put them through the in-body machine, and then keep all that data for literally every athlete at West Point. So that was pretty awesome for me to see, because obviously not every school, has the luxury of having that kind of equipment. So coming in here and then knowing I have the option to test, the force decks as often as I want, or even, do the in-body machine, test their body comp and all that at the end of like every block if I wanted to, that was pretty cool for me. And I think that's really the direction that strength and conditioning is going in, which we all know, very technology based, data informed and all that. So yeah, coming here and seeing that, feel very, very lucky to have those kind of resources.
Yeah, is that something that the athletes get excited about typically, like having that kind of feedback right away?
I think it is, for sure. Especially my men's swim team, they're very competitive in the weight room, and it's awesome. I love it. But even things as small as like taking vertical jumps on a jump mat in the middle of lift, they all will crowd around each other and watch each other jump and look at their heights. So it's something they like to use, and I think the more that we get the athletes to understand what exactly it's telling us, the more kind of bought in and the more that they care about it. Same thing with their body comp. They like to see where they're at. They like to see their progress. It makes it more worthwhile for me to use it, knowing that they are actually interested in seeing, what they get as well.
Yeah, I think it's cool to be, I guess, in both positions, an athlete and a coach, but to have some type of like right there kind of number, because, we, especially at a collegiate level where you have probably been training for a while, and you're not always going to be getting so much stronger. You're not always going to be seeing huge, changes. It's going to be, very small changes a lot of times, especially over, a month or 3 months or 6 months. But
Yeah.
but to have, especially, I think that would help definitely keep somebody motivated. Be like, oh, I didn't realize that I was, 0.3% better or 1.8% better. You can't really
Yeah.
see a 6% change in something, but whenever you can see that number on some type of technology, it's like, oh man, this is working. So I guess it would definitely be like a buy-in tool as well. Like, okay, let's keep pushing because this thing is helping you out.
Yeah. Also, the sport coaches love to see it as well. So I'll take vertical jumps for all of my teams twice a week when they're in season, and then I'll update that every week, and then give access to that data sheet to the sport coaches. And that's just something small and easy, just to show them, are the athletes recovering? Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? And they are completely bought into it, and they love to see it. So something that easy that takes 5 minutes out of my day to do that. And it's like very quick feedback to the sport coaches too, because obviously they can't make it to every lift. They can't make it to every conditioning session, whatever. And so again, that's just kind of you showing them, is what we're doing working, or is it not? So
I think an interesting point you just made was the recovery aspect, and having access to like some type of performance based statistic and metric is like, okay, are they getting better or are they actually kind of declining in their performance? And like if an athlete is, and then that probably goes back to, like you said, the recovery aspect. How do you handle that situation?
I would say just having a conversation with the sport coaches, and then as well as with the athlete, and hopefully, you know, you can catch on to an athlete not recovering or doing what they need to do before it gets to a point where it's a serious issue. So I think just staying on top of it's important. But again, I just like to have those conversations with my athletes every day, especially if I start to see something, with their vertical jumps where it's, if they're down, 2 weeks in a row, then I will address and say, what's going on. it could be like an exam week, or they just had a really tough week at practice or something. But just making sure that myself, the sport coach, the athletic trainer, and the athlete are all on the same page, I think is huge. And then again, using that kind of data to refer back to is super important.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a game changer, especially for people who are super motivated. You know, they don't want to say, okay, I need to take a little time off, or I need to do this better. I need to do maybe something that's not like do like if it's something that they can't do or don't need to be doing. You know, I think that's hard for some people, whether you're, you know, at West Point, or you're an athlete in college, or whether you're just somebody who really is dedicated to, you know, your health and fitness and things like that. That's, you know, that's somebody that just wants to constantly be improving, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard to see like improvement in not doing something, I think.
Yeah. And then just kind of like getting them to reel it back in and understand, again, because they always want to do more than they are asked to do, which is awesome and it's great. But at the same time, sometimes it can be detrimental to, you know, their recovery and their performance. Um, so I also think just, and again, they're extremely smart kids. So even if you were to bring them a data sheet and say, hey, look, like your vertical jump has been down the past 2 weeks, you need to do something different now, then they'll see that and be like, okay, yeah, you're probably right. And I think that goes further than just saying, hey, can we just reel it back in this week? We need you to recover a little bit better. And having them actually see that number in front of them, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's cool. And I hope that technology certainly kind of like drifts down and becomes more accessible to just the everyday person, you know, having that ability, and those obvious numbers and things. And because I think that's one thing that we struggle with, you know, outside of like, you know, strength conditioning and things like that, where you have kind of a very knowledgeable person in there working with you. I think we struggle with this idea of like, okay, what do we see on social media? We see people working out. That's all we really kind of see, or we see people maybe posting pictures of food, but like we don't see people, you know, taking a picture of themselves sleeping, saying, "Oh, I'm getting, you know, 8 hours of sleep tonight. You know, you
Yep,
should be
exactly.
recovering better." Like we constantly see these people working out, and that's, you know, I think a good message to spread, but it's also a thing that is more common than people posting, "Oh, hey, you know, maybe we should take today and drink more water, or, you know, eat more of this, or do whatever, get more sleep, whatever it is." Like
Yep.
it's tough. And I hope like that technology that is accessible and used in the college and professional and maybe some high school levels, like hopefully that kind of drifts down to just kind of the everyday lifter, everyday, you know, runner, whoever it may be. That'd be, I think, kind of cool.
Yep. I agree.
In your early career, you know, you've probably seen some things that you were like, oh man, you know, I didn't think it would go this way. I didn't think things were that way, whatever it is, whether it be good, whether it be bad. But like in the future, where do you hope to see some changes being made in the field of strength and conditioning?
I think whenever I hear that kind of question, the first thing I automatically think of every time is two different things: either strength and conditioning Twitter, or the the way I think that interns are treated. And so, as far as like the strength and conditioning Twitter, again, like we said at the beginning of this, was there's a million different ways to do things, and the chances of you picking something the correct way to do it are very high. So it's like, why are we constantly jumping down each other's throats? You know what I mean? And I think that's something that, you know, as a community, we should try to change, because, again, just because I do something a certain way and another coach doesn't do it the same way, doesn't mean I'm wrong or doesn't mean they're wrong. Obviously, that could be the case in some instances, but, you know, like, not everybody needs to do the same thing. I mean, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes, you know, me different from the next coach, is maybe I like to do things differently than they do. And I think we should be more aware of that, and um, less ready to jump down each other's throats whenever something's posted. And be less quick to judge, especially if those athletes are enjoying it, because you never know. And then two, I think, the way that interns are treated, sometimes you can hear that like they're extremely undervalued, whatever. I do still think it shouldn't be lightened up really the way that, the hours that an intern has to work and the things that they have to learn and, their responsibilities and all that. But at the same time, I was very fortunate for both of the places that I was at where, I was built up rather than broken down as an intern, and they wanted to see me succeed. And, from here on, because I had that experience, I'm going to treat the interns the same way, where it's like, I want to teach you. I want you to be better than I was when I was an intern. Because I look back and I think like all the things I could have done differently, all the stupid things that I did, and then just how much I didn't know. And then I think if you can try to make a difference and, like make them feel like what they're doing is meaningful and that you're actually helping them out, then it goes such a long way. Like just telling an intern, I appreciate what you did for me today. You did a great job with XYZ. And then it makes the long hours that they have to work, their early mornings and all that worth it. So those are the two things I want to see.
Yeah, I think those are definitely very strong points being made there. It is a lot of kind of animosity amongst people on social media, no matter what. But it seems like in the world of strength conditioning and of just, I think, fitness and in general, it's like, oh, why would you do that? That's like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You're an idiot. Like, I think that could definitely get better as well. That's a good point to be made. And yeah, and then the interns, like that's the future of the field. So, why are you, not doing what you can, I think, to really create a better field than when you leave it. So yeah, definitely. I think two really good points right there. Other than that, do you have any advice for a strength conditioning intern or someone who is interested in kind of getting into the field?
I would say, again, I think about what I did when I was an intern and then, waking up early, driving an hour there, blah, 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 all that. Embrace the suck. Like, embrace how much being an intern can suck at times, but in the end, it will pay off, especially if you're doing a good job. And it'll go a very, very long way because, again, I was an intern at Army and then it paid off because I ended up getting hired before I even finished being a GA. So it really just goes a long way. Treat the coaches that you work with, treat them with respect. Let them know that like you value them. I think it's a two-way street. The intern should be showing you that they're extremely, grateful for you teaching them. And then you as a coach, you let them know that you're grateful for them helping you out, and it'll go a long way. But embrace the suck, do what you can, never say no to anything, even though that can, again, be very hard, but it pays off.
That's good. I think that's good advice. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing a little bit about you and your journey, and look forward to kind of keeping up with what you got going on, and good luck out there. It's a crazy world.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Absolutely. And if you want to just let people know real quick where they can find you if they want to follow along as well, that'd be cool.
My Instagram is coach_Rachael.s. And then the same thing for my Twitter. I haven't been posting on Twitter that much, but I do post a good amount on Instagram.
Awesome. No, it's good. It's cool to see those posts from the weight room and stuff like that too. I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in their own world, even if it's on accident, and just seeing like, oh, this person does this way. And as long as we have open minds, of course, I think it's cool to kind of get just different ideas and perspectives. And that's what this podcast is all about, to kind of share what's going on. And once again, thanks for sharing yours.